Hello and welcome back to Animals Embroidery. This is week 3 and today we will be learning fanning stitch and stem stitch as well as stem fill. So fanning stitch, which is the first one that we'll do, is a building on what we did last week, which was the brick stitch. So it's using a similar principle, but it's going out in a fan shape. So let's get, I've got 2 needles threaded up, one with a dark brown and one with a light brown. I'm going to start with the darker brown and then I'm going to go a shade lighter. So how we begin this stitch, if you like, you can draw a small triangle. So that's very faint, but it's just a little triangle drawn in pencil. And you start from the tip of the triangle. You do a long stitch, which is 1 centimeter. Then going in the middle and to the side, similar to the long and short stitch set up for the brick stitch we did last week, you come up and you return to the center. Then you want to come up from the center again, making sure not to come up the exact same hole that you went down, so you don't want to pull your stitches out. But then you do another long stitch. Another short stitch. Keep going with a long. This stitch can be very good for feathers, but also it can be a good way of like spreading out a fur texture, like for something like maybe like an animal's cheek or somewhere where there's like a bit like a fluff coming from one point. Okay, and you want to make sure that you finish up on a long stitch. So I'm just going to do my last long stitch for this little wedge. And then I am casting off, which, just for a reminder, you find a stitch, go under it, wait for the loop to develop, and then pull tightly forwards and backwards. And you want to do that twice. Okay. So, I already have my next color threaded up, so I can go straight on. Now, very similar to the brick stitch, you want to come up at the top of your short stitch or your second stitch that you did. And then you just want to extend. But now you want to go beside and in the middle. And then you want to go in between the long stitch and the short stitch here. And then you want to find that space on the other side too. Come up. You just want to kind of like start finding the spaces in between this initial stitch setup and forcing these threads in between them. On all the short stitches, like at the top of every short stitch that you did for your initial setup, you want to be doing very long stitches, or like centimeter stitches. The rest of the stitches, like the ones that you are just placing in between, do them relatively short. Cool, and that is how you do a fanning stitch, or at least the beginning of a fanning stitch. Okay, so now I've got another thread threaded up for a stem stitch, and I've drawn a line with a pencil here for a straight stem, and I've got a little box here for the stem fill, which I'll also be showing you today. So we start the stem line very similar to the back stitch from week 1. Just come up, test your tension, go forwards about 1/2 centimeter. Very simple. Then you're going to come up on one side, in the middle and to the side, kind of similar to how we've been doing with the brick stitch and the fanning stitch. Come up and then go forwards. When you go down, you'll be going on the line. Then you come up on the same side that you came up before. So in my case, I'm coming up on the left-hand side. So I'm always going to come up on that side. And I'm always going to be going forwards, landing on the line, which will make sure that my stitch is straight, which should create this sort of zigzagged line that can be used very effectively as a border for an animal that would give it a sort of like a fuzzy edge, make it look like it's got fur. You know, it's kind of like a squiggly line or a jagged line can imply a texture. All right, so I'm not going to go all the way down to the end of the line, but you get the idea. When you're finished, you do your last stitch, and then you just come around and cast off. So it's very simple, just a regular cast off. Now I'm going to put another knot in the end here. I'm going to show you how to use this stitch to do a fill. So you can use this stitch to do a fill by coming up, doing your initial stitch, you know, just a forward stitch, 1/2 centimeter. Then you come up on the side, start filling, come up on the side and in the middle again. Then I've done a little stitch here that was like started out halfway along this stitch, but then just went to the edge of the square. So now I can do a stitch starting at the edge of that square that goes down to the full length here and matches up parallel with that other stitch. And then I just keep going. You might find that you're making little like jagged lines, like little M's or little V's. But you'll fill this all in. So now I'm connecting that little stitch to that one, and then I'm coming up at the edge of the square, connecting these two. Go in the middle here, join all them up. Okay, so you probably get the idea from this, is that it's just a great way of making sure that you maintain your brick pattern where no two stitches are lined up parallel all the way along. And it's kind of more of a free form way to do that. So you can do this in a sort of very irregular shape. It's not the perfect stitch for filling in a space like a rectangle. It's more for creating a sort of like organic shape where you can sort of take the shape any way you want. You can sort of expand in any direction from the shape now. Yeah, great. Well, yeah, so that's the class. And yeah, can't wait to see how your animals are going. All right, cool. See you in class.